What is the dream? What's the dream for your life? This is what I ask everyone, whether I'm at Starbucks or I'm at the airport, the TSA line, you know, the people who just check your ID. I'm like, what's the dream for your life? And most of them look at me like, what? They've never been asked that. They've never even thought about the dream for your life. And the dream, when I talk about it, it's like that dream that you had when you were a kid, when you go to bed at night, and you thought like, this is what I want to do. It's like, this is what I want the world to be like or look like. It was those dreams that you had before you were taught that the way the world is the way that it's going to be. And so I've learned in my few short years in life to have like kind of a system, a way to look at it. And I call it the ABCs of life. And that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today, the ABCs of life. And so the first one starts with A, and it stands for alive, like being alive. Like all of us in this room can spontaneously clap. Let's try it. Clap again. That means we're alive. We're breathing the same oxygen. And, you know, it might be obvious to state like that we're alive, but if you look around the world, whether you're at the store or at Walmart or something, most people aren't alive. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like they're just kind of existing, but they're not awake to the fact that they're a human being on this planet. Like sometimes I have to rewind and go way back in time, not like thousands of years or like millions of years, but like 16 billion years when this planet came into existence, and it started orbiting this ball of fire, and the ball of fire is apparently going 45,000 miles at a time. 45,000 miles through space. It's not like circling and we're not moving. We're flying through space in a vortex with a bunch of other rocks around us. And we're flying and orbiting way out into this expanding cosmos as far as we can tell. And this is going to last for 5 to 6 billion more years until we hit a black hole or something. And what's crazy is that 175,000 years, so not that long ago, Homo sapiens were born in the Rift Valley in Africa. And believe this to be true. Science shows that there was one woman and one man, and that their DNA is passed to everyone in this room and everyone on the planet. We are all each other's brothers and sisters. I know, it's hard to believe, but you know this to be true as well, but I'm just gonna break it down again. At one point, your mother and your father got together, and your father somehow gave your mother 1.5 terabytes of information. I'm not being gross, I'm just being scientific, okay? Don't make it weird, please. And one of those terabytes of information found it, or megabytes of information, found it into an egg that was in your mother when your mother was in your grandma's womb. This is what happened. And suddenly, you were born. You were here. You didn't sign up for it. You didn't have a choice, right? But now you exist. And now, I would say that means you're a miracle, right? Like that's kind of amazing. Out of billions of millions of thousands of years, we get to breathe on this planet for like maybe 100 years if we're lucky, right? And so when I think about myself existing at 37 years old, born on October 12th, 1978, I was born into a family in San Diego, and my family liked theater. My mom and dad started a theater company, an organization, so I knew how to like tap dance, and I knew how to watch shows like Wizard of Oz and Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland. I was surrounded by stories, and so I knew at a very young age I wanted to commit my life to storytelling. In 8th grade, I was like, I want to tell a story that millions of people will see. I don't know why, but I thought the only way to do that is to go to film school. So I decided in 8th grade to go to film school. But in junior high, my parents wanted to protect me from all the bullying and attacks, so they kept me home, and they homeschooled me. Have any of you guys ever been homeschooled? Okay, for those of you that don't know what that looks like, it's a school in your home. You don't do much. There's not a ton of socializing, and you don't have a lot of friends when you step into high school freshman year. So that first lunch, that first week, I knew one friend, it was a girl, so I sat with all her girlfriends, and the guys didn't like that very much. So they took like carrots and sandwiches, and they just started throwing them at my head, as any freshman in high school might do. And at that moment, I didn't know what to do, didn't know if I should fight back, probably couldn't, so I just stepped back slowly and put the hood on my head, and for the next 2 years, walked through high school like a zombie. I was extremely depressed. I went through major identity crisis, didn't like my voice, didn't like who I was, and at one point my junior year, wanted to take my life. I thought, it's not really worth it. Walking around invisible, hating who I was, not having any friends. And that's what led me to B. A is alive, and B is be yourself. I know it's cliche, but it's so true. There's no one like you. My friend Donald Miller, he's this author, and he has this part in a book, which I'll paraphrase now. He says, if aliens came to Earth, and if it was their job to look around at the way humans, went about their day and went about their life, the alien would go back to the planet and say something kind of like this. Human beings, in every way, every day, are constantly comparing themselves to one another. It's a strange thing because their life is so brief, and it doesn't really make sense. The sad part is, most of them don't recognize they're doing it, although it is so obvious. This disease of comparison is killing them and sustaining their social and economic systems. The human species is an extraordinary, beautiful creature with a terrible problem. I've had that problem too, a lot, a long time. How many likes? How many friends? How good is a TED Talk before you or after you? How do you compare? How do you measure up? I have friends who have millions of followers on Instagram, and they want more. The disease of comparison is killing us. And so I'd love for us to evolve into a place where we're just gonna be ourselves. We're gonna wake up to be alive and then be ourselves, to become only ourselves, not our sister, not our best friend. And once we've done that, we've arrived to my favorite letter, which is C. C is for create. We are the only creative species. We can make whatever we want with these thumbs. Like, we can just do a ton of stuff. We can paint, we can sing songs, we can dance, we can play sports. We are so creative. And so my love is storytelling, is creating a story. And so right out of film school, me and two friends, we went to South Sudan to document a genocide that was going on there. All we wanted was a story. And then, in a very unpredictable way, a car was shot in front of us by a rebel army who was led by a guy named Joseph Kony, who was the world's first indicted war criminal. Because for a long time, the people in northern Uganda were not supporting his war. So he decided to abduct children, and the boys he used as child soldiers, and the girls he used as sex slaves. At the time, this was going on for 17 years, and we were like, what? And so we documented the atrocities, and we met this boy. His name was Jacob. And he was just like me in high school in the sense that he wanted to kill himself. He had nothing more to live for. These children were forced to do the most horrific things. And so we documented his story, and we worked for year after year telling the story, going to high schools, going to colleges, saying, you guys, this is kind of important. These children are being murdered. And we had a lot of success around young people hearing the story and seeing themselves in it. They rallied in the streets. They got us on Oprah 3 times. We passed 2 bills through Congress. We changed history and got the United States troops to go to Central Africa to remove Joseph Kony from the battlefield. We met President Barack Obama in the Oval Office. It was an amazing journey. And the stories will be lived on for a very, very long time. But the thing that's beautiful about stories and the way that our minds work is a guy named G.K. Chesterton said, there is nothing that we can't imagine within the infinity of our minds. And because our minds are infinite, it is our job when we dream up the dream for our life to imagine a world that is different than the one we live in. Because what we believe about ourselves is exactly what we become. Now, that doesn't mean what we want, we get, okay? If no one has told you you have a good voice, then don't audition for American Idol, okay? The world and everyone around you is speaking to you at all times. And so if someone says, hey, you're a really good writer, I love what you write, push into that. If someone says, hey, you're a fast runner, you should join a team, consider doing that. So what you believe about yourself is exactly what you become. And I believed that I could tell stories, that I wanted to tell stories. And so at the 9th year of Invisible Children, which was the organization that I started with a bunch of friends, we decided to go all in and tell the story of Jacob and Joseph Kony. And the goal of the story was to make Kony famous. Now check this out. We wanted 500,000 views in the whole year of 2012. We got 500,000 views in the first 3 hours it was online. By the time we reached day 7, we had 120 million views around the world, translated into every country in every language. By day 3, I was in LA doing interview after interview after interview, took the red eye to New York, landed at 5 in the morning, cover of the New York Times, above the fold, Kony 2012 goes viral. I'm on the Today Show, People Magazine, Reuters, on and on and on. I was so excited, finally someone was caring about these invisible children. But the thing that my mind couldn't wrap its head around was the question that everyone kept asking. All the interviewers wanted to know, from Anderson Cooper to CNN to the BBC, and they'd stare at the camera and they'd say, how did you make this video go viral? That was their question. I kept saying, what? That's your question? How did you make this video go viral? And then on the phone backstage, you'd be on the phone with all the bigwigs. We want to buy it. We want to buy you. We want to own you. I'm like, first of all, it's a nonprofit, okay? Second of all, it's a free video on YouTube. You can't own it. It's free. And so my mind couldn't wrap my head around the fact that no one had asked me, how can we help the children? How can we help the children who've been caught in a 26-year war? And this led me to not being able to sleep, not being able to stop my racing mind. And 4 years ago to this day, March 15th, I was on a street in San Diego, totally naked and crazy out of my mind. Someone driving by in a car took a video on their phone, and they sold it to TMZ for $30,000. And then my naked and crazy mess went viral as well. I bring you this talk because there's one more letter. You have A, we're alive, we're breathing. Isn't it exciting? We're on a rock floating at 45,000 miles per hour through the cosmos. It's kind of amazing. Like, when you go outside today, please promise me you'll be like, wow, I exist. We're alive. And then B, just be yourself. Just look at yourself and be like, I'm cool. Like, yeah, I got some thunder thighs, or I got freckles, or a big nose, or whatever, but I'm myself, and there's no one else like me. And then once you do that, be free to create. You can create anything you want. Go into the infinity of your mind and say, I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to do this. And then finally, realize that we're all in the same boat. And D is for death. I know, it's kind of a bummer, but no one's been able to escape it yet, as we know. So when you think about it, though, in like the cosmic sense, it's kind of a cool invention, death, you know? Because if there was no death, there would be no empathy. Because empathy stems from the fact that we're living one tiny, fragile life. We're all just people faking it. No one knows what's going on. We're just kind of faking it this whole time. I'm serious. Trust me on that one. So we're just walking around realizing, like, we're going to die soon. Like 40 years, 20 years, 80 years, depending. And it's a cool invention because a lot of things get done. Like a lot of inventions get done because our time is so limited. And so you kind of embrace death, like the way I've embraced my breakdown on the street. Like, can you think of anything else that's worse than running around naked going like this on TMZ? I can't, but I was there. And I'm standing on a TED stage living to talk about it, so it can't be that bad, right? I also just want to say that the sad part about the Invisible Children narrative right now is that Joseph Kony and the LRA last month abducted 200 more children. It's a 30-year war. It's still going on. But there's a few hopeful things happening. One is that the children who are escaping the LRA are now on Facebook and Instagram, and they're messaging people on FM radios into the LRA saying, come home. Surrender, we'll forgive you. And they're posting these stories out to the world. It's the children who are abducted who are now getting more children out, and it's working. Hundreds and hundreds are coming out of the LRA. And I'm excited to report that Jacob, that boy who wanted to kill himself 12 years ago, is a lawyer now. He wants to bring justice to Uganda, to his country. So there is hope. And I just want to tell you, the dream for my life is that I want war to end. I know that seems impossible. I get it. Human nature, we're always going to be violent. I know. But I think we're living in a time in which the world is becoming increasingly more connected. And I believe millennials and their children will look at war as a choice, and they'll believe it's a choice we don't have to make anymore. And so when I ask you, the last thing I'll just say is that when you look at death, when you look at the fact of death and the reality that it's going to happen, billions of people die without ever having lived. And so I beg of you to live. I beg of you to ask yourself, what's the dream for your life? And then go get after it. The world is waiting for you. Thank you.